All right, guys. So we're reunited.
Hi, Ashley.
And it feels so good.
Feels so good.
Yeah.
Welcome back. You know, the last time we talked, you guys were about to play a couple shows and make your debut as Space Lasers in your new album and play it live. So I just wanted to get a little recap since we last spoke. So you played out at Starlight, Evening Muse. How's it been going?
I'll let Tom take it away.
It's going really well, I think.
Yeah.
The band is sounding good. Like we know our tunes. And, I think we're just learning to, speak to each other in musical terms on stage.
Yeah.
And,
what does that sound like, look like?
Well, I mean, it's more like, so, for example, because Evening Muse, we had a really nice video done for it, right? And I noticed little things where, like, I just give a quick little nod or whatever, and I, sort of thought to myself, I'd like to get that nod down to, almost just a twinkle in the eye. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get it to where, everybody's sort of speaking unconsciously to each other. You know what I'm saying?
There was one not so subtle one where you just yell out, double time.
Yeah, that's right. So you got to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Just top of your lungs, here's what we're doing. But, just because we do improvisational music, obviously there's heavily structured stuff, but to some degree you have to be just in communication with each other at all times just to get things to change, to move, to grow, to evolve, et cetera, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's songs that start off with improvised jams and then lead into songs, and you kind of know, there doesn't have to be a nod. You can hear, oh, Tom's hitting, the structured part, and now it's time to move into the song. And I know, okay, time to start singing in a second.
Yeah.
Or, and the other solo sections sometimes, within the middle of a song, it's we could go as long or as short as we want. How's the energy feeling with the crowd? Are they still with us? Should we keep going or not?
And I was just about to ask, how does that change compared to practice? Is it the crowd that you're feeding off of, or how does the dynamic between you guys change compared to practices?
It is probably not surprisingly, but definitely remarkably different because the heat's on, You can mess up at practice and everybody laughs at you or whatever, or not maybe, but you just feel like you really have to give it your all. And
right, and you can't start over. You can't
you
stop.
can't. Yeah, you're not okay, let's start at the bridge again. No, that's not going to fly.
There are things, too, with practice where it's you refine parts and you can mess around with, playing behind a vocal and trying to find the right part, but you don't do that live. It's if you're playing and it's a very, we're a three-piece, a mess up will show really clearly.
Yeah.
So there was something new I added to New Orleans where I had these, harmonics going in there, and I wouldn't have tried that out
Sounds
live.
very nice.
Yeah, it does. So I was happy that we worked, I found that, the practice right before the show, and I was like, oh, that feels so nice, because that's such a subtle song,
Yeah.
And, I thought about this recently where, the drummer has the most pressure in that situation, because if they stop, the song's fucked.
Yeah, you're the anchor of all of it.
I suppose.
I can cut out for a couple measures and find it back in, and it's it's rocky, but the song doesn't fall apart. You know what I mean? It's
no,
really
but I
up to
think
you.
what part of the performing live is the fun of let's extend this, or let's bring it down and then bring it back up. And that's what makes it fun, even though it's there's a risk that you take when we do that. But sometimes our best stuff, like the funk intro for one of the songs we played at Evening Muse, granted, we practice that in varying degrees of length and, structure, and structure in quotes because it's all kind of freeform. But that version of it, I was like, this is dope. And then you just feel it and you hang out in that space. And then you kind of just, you kind of called it in, but not even explicitly.
Yeah.
It was
you get to
it was
see-
implicit, oh, we're gonna go now.
Yeah.
And it's like a balance, I think, of multiple things. So
Yeah.
And those moments too, I think it just worked out beautifully with Evening Muse because we didn't get a sound check. So doing 1 minute or 2 minutes of improv allowed the sound people to dial in everything. So by the time we actually came in, it was everything was there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you don't know where you're going a lot of times. You start something, and you're this might work. It might be a total disaster.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Especially,
Yeah.
like, you guys are just starting, so it's like, how is this going to land? It sounds really good in practice, but like,
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
it feed off the crowd?
And I'll say too, we did like 2.5 hours at Starlight.
yeah.
And I would say that it was a good 2.5 hours. I think we had 30 minutes at the Evening Muse, and it was like a tight 30 minutes. And now it's
Yeah.
like, how can we maintain that tightness over 2.5 hours? And that's us,
Yeah, that's
you know,
the
the next
challenge.
big
getting in our
challenge.
reps, you know?
So on the live shows, like, what is your thought process before a show? Like, do you have a ritual or do you have a routine before?
Mikey always goes on a walk.
Yeah.
That's my thing though. But as a band together, I think we need to develop what that is. Like, I
Agree.
think
I
whether
mean-
that be just
Yeah.
you know, the thing about us, and this is actually a ritual that we've had for a while, is you never practice the day of a show,
Yeah, that's
and then you
true.
never have a good practice as your last practice.
No.
That practice has to be bad.
And it was
And
bad.
that is
It was
the-
real bad.
Yeah, that's right. You were like almost passing out.
Yeah, I was exhausted.
right.
Yeah. And
that
I
is
was
the-
like,
Oh, I was like, Andrew feels like dirt. This is going to be a great show.
oh. It was
It's so weird, but that's like, and so we don't have a ritual per se. But
I think we
going
kind of do.
into
We
a
hang
show-
out and we crack jokes at
Yeah.
each other and we drink beers.
But it's like,
Yeah.
what
You
do
know.
you need as a performer? It's like sometimes I like to just be quiet, have some space. I like to listen to relaxing music,
Yeah.
and then I go out and I play. It's whatever you need to get yourself out of your own head.
Yeah. What about you guys? Do you have any like personal things to get you in that mindset?
heroin.
This is a non-drug friendly
we
podcast.
were going to talk about that after
Yeah.
the podcast.
No,
This
no,
is
no.
also an intervention.
No, but
With,
literally though, like for me, like Mikey was doing like warm ups on a drum pad beforehand, which is cool because at a place like Starlight, their green room is like has no wall to it, like there's no full wall. So I was like, what is that noise going on? As they were playing house
Didn't even
music,
think about that.
I was like, oh, it's Mikey. I was like, oh, that's great though. I'm glad he's warming up. And for me too, I do like nerdy vocal warm ups, and I didn't subject you guys to it, but I'm like going off to the bathroom and like. And like doing all that stuff, just stretching out my voice.
Yeah.
I don't do anything. I saw once, here's a funny story, like I played in a band with this guy named Ned Evett, who's pretty well-known guitarist in certain circles. And I did this thing on stage where, because I saw, I don't know, some guy talk about it online, and where he like does this sort of yoga move on stage to like, and the idea is to make the space your space. And I remember doing this, and he looked at me and like laughed like I was the biggest fucking idiot. And I was like, I'm never doing this again.
So you just go for it. You're just
Yeah, I
like,
just go out
See
there.
what happens.
I will say it's not a nerdy thing to warm up your vocals.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's what both you and I should do, and we
That's
just
true.
don't.
It probably would help. Especially here's something that's fun to talk about, like the Starlight show, because we played it. You said 2.5 hours, and then we go to 30 minutes the next show, a week and a half later. You have a lot of time during the Starlight show to kind of like get really nicely warmed up, like where you're just like hitting a stride at some point, and you're just like shredding, right?
Yeah.
And then, but evening muse, it's like get up, you better kick ass right out of the gate, you know, and you have a very short amount of time, and you have to kick ass the whole time, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a lot. It's like kind of it's tense.
But
a
and
little
it's an
bit
interesting
tense.
dynamic. It's like it's almost like some of these venues they're different challenges for us to kind of tackle, right? Like how do we be great off the bat, engage the audience, and then for a longer show, how do we build? And,
Yeah.
like, take them on a space laser-y journey.
I mean,
And-
that's what
and
the light. That's what the light show's about.
And
That's
again,
what
so
Smoke Pain's about.
thinking about these last two shows, that's where the future focus is going to be.
Yeah.
Like, how do we create a show?
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So almost like taking that type 30 feeling and just expanding
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
essentially.
and like you said, 2.5 hours. Like, realistically, I think we're like a nice hour and a half. Like a tight.
Yeah, if we don't do the like
Hour
sort
and
of
a half band.
cover tunes that we half know and shit like that. you know?
Yeah.
and maybe 2 hours, would be the sweet spot ultimately for like just gigging generally. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Because we're a band that could be playing in a lineup of 5 bands, at an original only venue, or we're a band that could be, at an outdoor venue and it's just us and it's 2 hours, and we can handle both. But it's like, all right, let's get our material together and get our mindsets right for both those different scenarios. Like,
yeah. And you're kind of like in that set right now, right? So you have the 2.5 hour, you have the 30-minute, and then you'll be playing a festival, the Shout Festival,
Yeah.
right, in a couple weeks. So
Yeah.
that will be
Charlotte Shout, baby.
That's
Yeah.
another tight 30.
That's
Yeah.
another tight 30.
And it's weird because like we played a show last night with the Lenny Kravitz cover band at Amos's, which is this big, like a mid-sized club. And it's every venue is like has its own, and you're not its own vibe, its own stage, its own sound setup, and you don't really know what it's going to be, and you just have to get up there and like, because like in Charlotte Shout, I think is probably going to be a big outdoor stage.
Yeah.
So it's outdoor sound. It's a totally different thing, and you just have to like.
figure it out.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate. At the end of the day, it's like, are you adaptable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to be.
Like, thankfully, like all of us are very adaptable. Like we're not heavily reliant on one thing, and if you don't have that thing, it all breaks down. You just can't. So
Yeah.
And speaking of which, again, that's at the show we just played over at Evening Muse. Mike's not playing his own kit. They have a house kit. Mike, and that's the thing that drummers always have to do, and I think that's the sign of a really accomplished drummer. It's like a drummer who can only play on his own kit, unless you're like Neil Peart or Carter
Right,
Beauford.
yeah.
Then that makes sense. Okay, the songs are written around this massive drum kit, but you have to be able to adjust and be like, all right, well, this tom's an inch or two away from where I think it's going to be compared to my kit, and like, can I handle it? Can I adjust?
And before we
Yeah.
take this on a tangent and just start talking about nonsense and not even the song that we're going to discuss, I wonder the same thing about you guys. Like, if you had to go up and play someone else's rig, but not only that rig, their guitar or their bass, and like how far the strings are from the fretboard, like what's the intonation like I can't imagine, and it's way harder, right? If you had to do a solo on someone else's guitar.
Yeah.
Like, but thankfully you don't have to do that because it's just one piece of gear.
Yeah.
But it's like if you think of like drumming is not that complicated thing, thankfully, or at least the drumming I do. But like I couldn't take if we had like a crazy solo, I wouldn't have been able to play it probably on that Space Lasers rig that was like breaking down, or the Evening Muse rig.
Yeah.
I got like one cracked cymbal, and I'm dealing with somebody else's stuff. So.
And I will go off on a tangent. We could edit this out, but I have a story. So years ago, I did a live album in the studio, all analog to tape. It was for a bluegrass trio that I was in. In this trio, I played banjo and guitar and mandolin. And for the songs where I was playing banjo, we were doing video of everything. And this is Brandon, if you're watching. This was a band that I did with my friend Brandon Markert, and it was called The Good Hand. And it was, anyway, my banjo had a very bright sound, but it also looked like a modern banjo. It was an acoustic electric. And for the look of the video, he's like, I don't know, man, I think we can get a cooler looking banjo. They had a music store next door. They insisted that I played this instrument that I'd never played before, and it was kind of a piece of shit. And it was a nightmare, like having to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, we're recording live to tape. I'm playing a banjo that I've never played before, and there's certain parts of the neck that are like fretting out. This is not a perfect instrument. This is an old crappy banjo, but it looks cool. And anyway,
was there video?
Yeah.
Was that why they wanted to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but not only that, it also had a duller sound, so it wasn't, since we were all recording around like one mic, it was like, okay, my banjo's not going to overpower everybody. That I totally understand. So it makes sense to sit better in the mix, get a different instrument. But that was a scenario that I was not prepared for because I'm not that great of a banjo player. So
I've never heard you play banjo at all.
And now I
I'm
want to play
better than you would
banjo
think.
right now.
Now we need a banjo
So,
song.
Yeah.
Let's stop the tape and get the banjo.
So anyway,
That's
Mike.
going to be the outro of this podcast.
Yeah. I'm going to be playing like Bezos on banjo.
Bezos?
Yeah. Well, so speaking of which,
Yeah. Well, I have one more question before we dive into Bezos, and that's I love to look at your facial expressions when you guys are on stage because I'm always like, are you proud of that moment?
Yeah.
You're like,
That's cool.
Where you're like, yeah, I nailed it. So what makes you proudest when you're on stage?
For me, I love when the improvisation is working really well, and like the dynamics are coming up with everybody together, and like everybody sort of synced up in that respect. And I always like it when it's ridiculous, You know, I like to make a big, ridiculous sound that everybody in the audience is like, I fucking hate this, but I have no choice but to listen to it. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like I sort of feel proud. Like, you're gonna look at me. You're looking at me. You have to look at me right now.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
but yeah, I hear that though. The big ridiculous sound, like Tom, you're able to create like layers of delay, and have this wall of sound. And I think that for the people who are digging it, it's like the climax of the song. And then for people who already weren't on the bus, they're definitely off the bus.
Yeah,
like at that point,
what the hell is going on?
Yeah, we've been weeding out those people for ages.
yeah, it's good. It's a good litmus test. Like, all right, if you're in, you're in. If you're out, this is your point to exit.
Yeah.
So for me, the parts where I'm proudest are because I think I'm an instrumentalist first and a singer second, far distant second. And it's when those vocal moments go right, especially because playing bass, it's like, coordinating two different opposing things. You're playing the melody with your voice, and you're doing the counter melody with your bass. And when I get those moments right, it's really nice. So for one of the tunes that we're going to be talking about in the near future, Colorblind, like I wrote this complicated bass line, and then I sing over it. So looking back at the video footage and be like, oh man, I nailed the bass part and the vocal part. I feel really good about that.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's
awesome.
something to be definitely proud of.
Yeah.
Especially as a bass player where it is notoriously difficult to sing and play the bass at the same time.
Yeah, unless you're like rocking straight eighth notes like Blink-182 or something. That, not the same level of difficulty, but if you're like Paul McCartney, Sting, Geddy Lee, those guys are like killing it, and vocally and instrumentally, and respect,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't there's no specific thing that's consistent in terms of that this I always feel good or like this brings me joy, but there's just always moments. Like there's a moment in a solo, some lick, and then you'll be like, that was dope. And then you can't help but like this big smile just comes across. Or I'll see like Tom over there just like jamming on the keys or something.
Yeah.
And he's just in his space. And I'm like, that's it. Like this is why we're here. This is why we play till 1 a.m.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like those flow moments. Like you kind of forget the audience, you forget what's around you, and you're just in it.
That's what you work towards.
And
Yeah.
Flow state.
And I should add again, this is a thing for Mike and myself, but whenever we're like super locked in, that's the most satisfying thing. Like not only
really
just with the
like
main
improving.
parts, but like the fills. Like if we are able to, like in Inverse Midas Touch, there's this like triplet 16th note fill that we do during Tom's solo section. That whenever we nail that, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's cool.
So let's talk about Bezos. This, by the way, is like
Not the man, the song.
kind of both.
there's
Yeah,
a
kind of both.
relationship
Yeah.
So this is like the one song I remember when I first started hearing you guys. Like the one song that always got in my head. It's like the earworm, like the song that always sticks with you.
Yeah.
And I want to start with the lyrics because they are so catchy. Going to give Bezos all my money. Stare at the screen. It makes my head feel funny. Now, I want it now.
Yeah.
Might be paraphrasing a little bit there, but
Yeah.
So is this song about consumerism? Is it about screens? What's the inspiration here?
This song is, for me, like, I had an idea. I always jot down ideas about stories that I would write if I was to actually take the time to sit down and write stories, which I don't. But, like, I have a bunch of ideas. And one of them is, because you know how online, like, Meta and Amazon and Google have a composite person. There's a Mike and an Ashley and an Andrew and a Tom online. And they have, like, here's how old you are, you have a daughter, here's your political views. Like, there's a composite human being online that they're advertising to, that they're, anticipating. And I thought my story idea was, what if that thing came to life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like Peter Pan's shadow.
Right, yeah, and it would just be this
Like
sort
your
of...
Amazon avatar?
Yeah, it would be like this partial person, but they would have these sort of like, I don't know, weird composite of qualities of a human. I don't know, and I don't really know how the story would go, but that's what the, what's the end of the song where it's like, you're an algorithm, you're a piece of the code, that stuff, that's where that part came from.
Okay.
And then there was this other, I forget the name of the comedian, the Asian guy, you know what I'm talking about? And I sent you the clip I was talking about.
Ronnie Chang.
Ronnie Chang, maybe that's
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
But he has this bit about how Americans and Amazon and everything, and he's like, I want it now, I want it now, I want it yesterday, just put it in my hand, you know? And he's just like this sort of idea that we're all like accelerating as consumers.
Well, it's the dopamine. We want that
Yeah.
immediate
Yeah.
dopamine rush.
Yeah.
Like if not heroin, then an Amazon package.
Right?
Right.
And so it's kind of for lyrics, it's a mix of those kind of two ideas that
Yeah.
I created. the song.
And you're agoraphobic, so like you don't
Right.
even want to be outside anymore. You don't want to go to a store.
Yeah.
You just want your own space.
You know, and COVID's like over or whatever, but there was 2 years or, well, probably like actually like a year where that's just how we all lived, you know?
Yeah.
And
From
And a
one-
lot of people just stuck with that too.
Yeah.
Like you still see people like used to that.
From one product to the next.
Dude,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is what I look forward to in my day.
dude, I was wearing a bathrobe for like a year and a half.
I don't.
It was
What is
great.
happening right now? That is a real story.
Yeah,
I don't even own a bathrobe.
I own
Really? You gotta
multiple.
get a bathrobe.
I know. I have.
Am
one.
I the only one who doesn't have a bathrobe?
Here,
I judge
apparently.
everyone.
All right. We
that,
don't
that
get
has
him
a
for his birthday
bathrobe.
now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
I will kill
Let's all
you.
get in bathrobes.
Everybody, right? Okay, so you talked a little bit about the outro, right? About the algorithm.
Yeah.
So that's like my favorite part of the song because it's so pretty and it's such a diversion from kind of the funk disco feel that you have at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think about the song breakdown like that when you transition in that way?
I'll take that. In my opinion, that's like the human element of the song. Like the beginning is mechanical, and the second, digital, and the second part represents like the human soul. So it's like the other side of the coin.
Almost like a conscious awakening
Yeah.
of like,
Oh.
you're an algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, these are the keys to your soul guiding your decisions.
Yeah, but it's like confronting
Yeah.
your shit. You
Yeah,
know?
like you're
Yeah.
looking at yourself in the mirror almost. And I'm just parsing this in real time.
Yeah.
So this
I think
might
it's
not be
great.
what it's
Yeah.
I
about.
was just gonna
It's
say like that.
officially
This
now.
makes me like this like 10 times
Guiding
more.
your decisions,
so-
it's seizing control, the
Yeah.
algorithm, and
Yeah.
it's like it's almost they're battling the inner demon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tom, I can't believe
That's
you thought of all
amazing.
this.
My
This is
God, this is
you're
like a
so
genius
talented.
song.
Hey,
Well,
hey,
I mean,
hey.
I'm in marketing, and these people do think like this. And
Yeah.
How do we control
100%.
people? And they're doing a fantastic
Oh
job.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I'm sucked in.
Dude.
Are we done now? Like, can I go?
I gotta I gotta get on.
I gotta look at my
Amazon.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the recording process, I heard that was interesting. Can you tell me a little bit
Woo, boy.
about
I'm gonna just let Andrew handle that story.
Yeah, so we initially did a series of songs live at a college.
Gaston College.
Yeah, Tom, you can touch on that
I
now.
had a student who was a student there. He was my guitar student as well, and he was doing the broadcasting program. And they just wanted people to come in so the kids could practice recording,
Okay.
engineering and stuff. So we came and did 3 songs.
Yeah, and I think that there are some songs that still have basic live tracks from that. So I think that one of our songs, So Far Away, we actually did still use the drum track from that.
Yeah.
And Bezos, for the most part, on the original version, we had used the drum track from that as well. And, we had those basic tracks, and then I added some overdubs and little things here and there to our basic like trio live track. I was like, all right, we could use an extra guitar part here. And then I added, talk box, which was a little controversial at the
Yeah.
time.
to say the least.
To say the least. They were like, what is this shit? What is he doing?
But there is an element of like familiarity, and like you listen to a recording that you made 100 times in a row, and then at some point your brain just goes, "That's what the song is."
Yeah.
And any deviation from that, you're like, "It's wrong."
I
can't-
was
Right.
I was actively upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I perceived it as so much work, but that's songwriting.
Yeah.
It's like you revisit songs constantly. A perfect example is a song "Lee" by Corey Wong that we love as a band, but I heard the original and it's 3 minutes and it's shit. But
Sorry,
that's the
Corey.
song they. Sorry, Corey, if you see this, I love you. You're the best. But the recording on the Paisley sessions, it's like a 11-minute song.
Yeah.
And it's just a journey.
Yeah.
And who knows? Like this might not be the only song we revisit.
Yeah.
And take
Yeah.
to a different
So,
place.
So
so
is
now
it-
to revisiting, I was sitting with we had a mastered version from our producer Damon Moon, who's been doing all the mixing and mastering. I should actually just say mixing, but we had a mixed version from him, and I was sitting with it and I was like, all right, this is one of my favorite songs on the album, but I think it could be better. And there were certain things that just weren't hitting for me, and and part of me was like, is this just my ego because the bass mix is a little low on this? And am I messing with something that is perfection?
With perfection.
But then I was just sending Tom voicemails and I was too scared to send it to Michael because I was like, oh, Michael's going to get so mad after we record drums. But I was like, I got an idea. And I've been listening to a lot of Zap, which is a fantastic band from the late 70s, early 80s. This guy, Roger Troutman, who people would probably know, he sings the hook on California Love by Tupac.
Oh.
And he does it using his signature talkbox. He was like the first synthesizer talkbox guy.
Oh, wow.
And so all of their songs feature him using the talkbox in really creative ways. But it wasn't the talkbox part of it. It was like we had already added that part of it, but that talkbox addition on the original version led me down the rabbit hole of really getting into Zap. And I was like, they have these, simplified drum and bass grooves, but that are just so danceable and fun and with hand claps, and it's so funky. And I was like, if we simplified the rhythm track on this and just made it just full of hooks, but the bass and drums are just really tight and locked in, that would be like the way to go. And then there's a certain way they did the rhythm guitars, and I was like, all right, Tom, we've got this finished version of Bezos in the can, but let me go and try out something, and if you like it, we'll continue. And he's like, all right, go ahead. So I did it, and then I sent it, and you can give your initial reaction. What you remember
I
from
don't
it?
totally remember my initial reaction, but I remember because you have that violin or string sample at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then it comes into this sort of splashy synthesized sound, and I definitely thought that was cool immediately. And I was, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm always a little averse to being like just pulling a loop off of Logic,
Yeah.
and putting it in a song. I feel like, but I mean, it worked great, and you did the same thing on Colorblind. Maybe I should save that for a different podcast.
Yeah.
And it ends up being what I play.
Yeah.
Now, and so.
Oh, that's the thing. I'm not really a piano player. I'm not really a drummer, and so loops but I did some creative things with loops where I'll chop them up, change keys, like pitch shift them up, pitch shift them down, just get them to work and fit in. And sometimes they're winners, and sometimes they're not. But these were winners. I was like, all right, this string lick is part of the song. But yeah, it ended up being. I don't know. You can tell. I don't want to be saying that it's good, but yeah.
How did you navigate all of those changes as a drummer?
Well, there wasn't necessarily structure changes, I think, to the song. There was things that were added, I think, to enhance the song overall. But I will say the initial change was to me, almost a different direction for the song. But now thinking about it, I can't even remember the original recording that we made. So it just takes some time sometimes to I see to take in the vision almost. But the changes to the drums, I think, were great changes. So almost to your point of lock it in and lock in the feel of the song. And I think it was way better on the second version than the first one. So.
Yeah. Is it final?
Well, that's the thing. So
this is V2.
So in the process of, after I had my mix, which I'm not a mixer, I had my mix, and then I was transferring files to make room on my hard drive and transferring files to an external hard drive, and that version was lost. So now we're rebuilding it, and we're literally going to re-record this fully arranged song and getting everything back.
What?
Yeah, I know. But it's going to be a banger. And I think that we already know what we got to do, and we already know all the sounds we need to go for. And as long as we don't get, demo love from the old version, I feel like this version of 3.0, either it's going to be as good as 2.0 or it's going to be like even better.
Well,
I feel like-
it'll be better. It,
Yeah, it'll
it
be
almost
better.
has to be.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
nature of things.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
now we got the funk intro, so
That's true.
Well, yeah.
This is true.
We're gonna have so many hybrids. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Well,
gonna,
that-
be,
well,
it's gonna
that's-
be interesting.
That's
Yeah.
going to be the incentive to see you guys live because
yeah.
it'll always continually evolve.
We'll
So.
never play the same.
And
song
here's
again.
here's my pitch too. So there's violins that I have, in the beginning there's synth, but there's actually a fantastic violin player here in Charlotte named Emmanuel that has his own band that I have already messaged like months ago about recording with us. So who does maybe real violin in the
Has
intro?
he responded or has he
He
ghosted you?
responded affirmatively. So, but I haven't reached out to him recently, so I'll check
We
back
recorded
in.
violin on our last album, and I just I don't know if it always works very well.
Well, you just can't add it to every song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But we added a violin player to the band. And a lovely man. But it's like, how do we add violin to every song we have?
I
Yeah.
mean, well, now we have banjo and violin. So this it just
Oh,
keeps
honestly?
getting
Stay
better.
tuned. He's coming in at the end with a banjo,
No,
guys.
I mean, there's only so far I can push
That's when
these
everybody
guys.
leaves the-
Exactly.
No thanks.
Thumbs down, unsubscribe.
Okay, well, my last question on Bezos. What was the last thing you bought on Amazon?
Ooh.
What was your algorithm telling you?
I literally bought an LED smoke machine. So that's going to be making its debut. It's got a remote control, so we can do a foot control or a remote. So we could have somebody at the sound booth or myself or Tom click it on with a foot, and it'll look like fire shooting out. So I'm really excited about that because I love the improvisational nature of our music, but I feel like not everybody, has. We're making music for musicians as well as non-musicians, but it's pretty nerdy music.
Yeah.
But I feel like having a cool stage show, like
You're giving them a.
I want to have a
experience.
flaming lip stage show, but
Oh, wow.
but the low rent version of the
That
flaming
is
lip
a
stage
high
show.
Got
Yeah,
it.
that's really what I
The
want.
last thing I bought on Amazon was dog poop bags. By the way.
Well, last
Which
thing I
could
bought-
also get used in the stage show.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I bought was butt wipes. So
Butt wipes. Toilet paper?
gotta nope, just the wet ones.
What are you
God.
doing in the toilet, Michael?
You gotta keep a clean bum, Tom. So
That's what your data is telling you. So
Yeah.
the algorithm feed. No, I
Has there
will
been
say
some criticism from
real-
Ashley or
real quick. The show we played last night, they had a whole. I guess it's like just a screen, like playing videos along with the songs, and it was very interesting to see like that level of stagecraft. I don't know what you call it, but
yeah?
that's a lot of work. But it'd be interesting to see if we could incorporate
Dude.
some kind of light show type.
Well, we have to eventually have lasers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, that's
There's
the
no way around that.
Well, the fog machine is supposed to augment the lasers.
Yeah,
and you
so-
can actually
yeah,
see the beams.
The lasers we haven't bought yet.
What he just bought.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a fog machine. Sorry.
I did, but the fog machine is meant to make the lasers apparent. Pop. Yeah, because otherwise, you've had a laser pointer, nothing special.
Yeah, we were gonna get a laser pen, and I was gonna blow
But if you have a
cigarette
fog-
smoke into it.
You're such a savage.
Dude, I mean, the flaming lips used to have a, what do you call those symbols that are kind of upside down? Is that China or whatever? Like,
Symbols
Oh,
splash?
no, there's symbols that are like wavy, kind of.
Yeah, there's one that's upside down. So the flaming lips used to fill those with lighter fluid and just light it on fire and have them. So we're not doing that. We're not doing anything dangerous, but we're gonna walk that line, whatever.
I just
We are?
have this vision of like Tom upstairs, like air traffic controlling with like glow sticks.
Yeah.
On like a 8x8 stage.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, at our Starlight show, your friends and Parisa brought those.
Oh,
like,
I brought those.
Oh,
that was
nice.
cool.
Yeah,
That was cool.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I want to have it feel like a rave at our shows.
Yeah.
That'd be dope.
Yeah.
So
We
you
gotta get
heard
those
it
outfits
here.
ready.
Come to the next
There
rave.
need to be more drugs.
On to the next wave. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And check out Bezos now on Spotify, iTunes Music.
Apple Music, Amazon.
Yeah.
Title, filling up Jay-Z's
I
pockets.
mean, we just said we didn't finish.
Yeah, but by the time we release
the
this
time we-
podcast,
Do the podcast. And then all
It'll
the
be-
other
this
things.
is the
It'll be
final
done.
final.
Yeah, that's final.
Yeah.
2027.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley.
Thanks, all.